welcome again. So this is a branded Tearlament deck profile that I've been testing out recently, and this is its final version. I'm gonna explain the deck choices, the going second card choices because I used to main Super Poly, now I side it, and the extra deck and the side deck, which of course the side deck will change as the meta changes, but that's the least important part of the video. So moving on to the main deck, we have the Despia cards, 2 Aluber, 3 Tragedy, and 1 Adlib. So yeah, you play 2 Aluber because the Tearlament cards give you an additional normal summon, which is Rhinoheart. Yes, you can spend. You don't want to draw hands that are like Alba's Aluber Rhinoheart. And Tragedy is the card that has synergy with the Tearlament cards, especially Shiren. Shiren Tragedy is an FTK basically, as I like to call it. 3 Tragedy, so this card is the best card to mill of the whole Despia cards because it gets you a search for Aluber or Adlib if you already have access to Branded Fusion. You could play 2 of this and 1 copy of Branded Retribution, which I'm writing in Greek. Excuse me. Branded Retribution, which is a searchable negate of Mirror Jade. It can negate cards like Ride, Sprite Starter, Branded Fusion in the Mirror Match, or the Tearlament cards. It's a really good card. It's basically an omni negate because most effects summon monsters now. And its greater effect is what is important because you can banish it and add back your Branded in red, or your Branded Fusion, or your Branded Opening. So it's negation plus follow up, and it's a good mill. And you can use Tragedy along Tragedy's add effect, and if you mill this, get something back. The problem is that it doesn't work if you draw it, unless you discard it. But you can't discard it with Shiren, because you have to send a monster for this card. Well, Tragedy works with Shiren. That's why we play 3 Tragedy. I would consider a build in the future where I would play this. Because you can search it of Mirror Jade, and it's a card that helps you have a disruption under a card like Dark Ruler or Forbidden Droplet, for example. The 1 Adlib, it's a brick, but it's a really good card in the engine. You don't play the Frightful cards, so yeah, the Adlibbing a gas card doesn't really facilitate in this deck, but that's okay. Moving on to the other cards for the branded engine. 2 Fallen of Albazes, you need 2 of this card, you're gonna resolve Branded Fusion a lot. This isn't a deck where you focus on the Tearlament cards. This is a deck where you focus on both parts of the deck equally well, because and Branded Fusion is the card that turns any engine you want online. And the 1 Snow, it's the light target, with Kit Kalos also being a card. You have fodder for this all the time. Milling it is also really good. Overall, the best light target, yes. Moving on to the Tearlament cards. 3 Havnis. This can function as a hand trap, but I mostly use it as an extender card that can mill cards going second, because if you use this as a hand trap, 1, you can mill something, but in this deck you're not gonna get Winda. Most of the time, if you mill a good Tearlament card or Tragedy, you can summon a Dragostab or a King of the Swamp. Yeah, you can summon like 1 interruption, but yeah, it's good, but it's not like Winda, and I don't play Shadows in this deck. Also, this turns on Triple Tactics Talent, which I think is a really good card in the meta. And cards nowadays have 1 card combo starters, and their talents will usually be like, oh, I want to look at your hand and get rid of your best card. So there's that. But if you play 3 because it's a card that can summon itself, we also have to play names. Uh, one Merly, because it's the worst name, but it is a name, so you play one. This is the one that you're gonna send most of the time of branded fusion because it's the less likely one you're gonna mill. So you send this of branded fusion or of this card, Rhinoheart. This card, it's the same logic with Aluber. You don't play a lot of these cards because you don't want to have a lot of cards in your hand that you have to normal summon them to do something. Rhinoheart and Aluber and Albaz are already 6 normal summons in a 43 card deck, which is okay. I don't think you can have more than that. I mean, you can play 3 Aluber, but no, I don't think that this will lead to like hands of one Aluber, one Rhinoheart, one Albaz, a bit more. And if one of them gets interrupted, you're in a situation where you pretty much have dead cards in your hand. Um, but yeah, you still play two because it's you want to see it sometimes, not all of the time, and you can search this card. The same thing with Aluber. We can search this card. So yeah. 3 Shiren. This is the best Tearlament card. It's a level 4 that summons itself and sends Tragedy to the graveyard, which gets you the search. Also mills cards that can mill Tearlament cards for fusion cards. But this deck doesn't really emphasize on the milling aspect. It mostly uses Tearlament cards as extenders. The milling comes as a bonus, I would say. If you mill well, you mill well. Okay. And the 3 field spell to search the Tearlament cards. There are some changes that I may do because this card is actually really good. It searches you any monster you need. It's also another Rhinoheart. That's why I'm saying you don't have to play 3 Rhinoheart. It searches Siren if you want to start something with Tragedy because Tragedy doesn't really work on its own, but in this deck you're always gonna search something that works with it. Also pops back row. This card gives you back row removal, which is really good. It's also the best way you can pop your Kaleido Heart and get its effect to shuffle back a card and send the Tearlament to the deck. Yeah, really good card. Gives you the bonus, the best card in the mirror match. I'm not playing Terraforming, but there is a change that you could make in this deck. And I'm gonna say it when we move on to the board breakers section of the deck. For the poly engine, because we played 2 King of the Swamp and 1 polymerization. You don't need 2 polymerization. Even if you mill the 1, it is okay because it's a bonus that gets you into Guardian Chimera. King of the Swamp is also really good because 1, it's an aqua, and it substitutes specific materials. So you can summon every Albaz fusion with it. You can summon Kaleido Heart with it, or you can summon Millennium Ice Restrict with it, which is the most common target. Yeah, this card is actually really versatile and good. And the 1 polymerization because it triggers the Tearlament cards, it triggers the Despia cards, and you summon the one and only Guardian Chimera, which is a very strong card, going second. Moving on to the branded cards, 3 branded fusion, best card in the deck. This is the best spell, but even if it gets asked, this deck can't play through it, which is really good. This is the best thing about the Tearlament cards. They give you ways to extend through Ash. So your opponent will need 2 hand traps, 2 good hand traps, one of them being Ash, or like sometimes even 3 hand traps to stop you, unless you have drawn a hand that isn't the best. 3 opening, searches the Aluber, and triggers a Tearlament monster in hand, which is really important, because this gets you to an early Masquerade. And if you can summon a second Masquerade, you can summon a second Masquerade. I mean, the 2 Masquerades in the extra deck, we're gonna get to that part, but I think at the moment they are worth it. And 1 branded in red. You don't need 2 of this. You could play 2, but I'm not really using this card. And I'm searching it when I have Branded Fusion already. And I mostly preferred to use the Mirror Jade effect to banish to get my guaranteed follow-up. But, because you don't always have Adlib in this deck, but this card is really, really good. You could play two. I'm not. You could like. You, like I'm saying, like one tragedy can live, and you can replace it with one retribution or unbranded in red. These are also cards that are disruptions through Dark Ruler, for example, which is really good. Moving on to the board breakers. 3 Dark Ruler, 3 droplets, and 3 triple tactics. Yeah. Uh, 3 Dark Ruler, the best card going second. Droplets is the second best card going second and the second best card going first. Triple Tactics at the moment is the best card going first and the worst but good card going second. So yeah, I think this is how you have to play Dark Ruler. It's a pain when you draw it going first, but it's so good. It's such a good card at the moment. Uh, 3 droplets. This card is in a weird spot right now with people testing the Dark Law stuff, with Shifter also being played in a lot of decks to counter this strategy, which is another reason why I think that the branded cards are really good, is because they can play under Shifter. And the 3 triple tactics, this is a personal choice. You can even cut these and play 40 cards, or what you can do is play the one branded retribution and play terraforming alongside with one or even two copies of Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine is in a weird spot right now. I think it's good, but I'm not sure it's gonna be the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh at this point, like it was in the previous format. Because Sprite has interruptions that can negate it, and they have Smashers, which outs it. Also, uh, this deck can out it with a card that I'm playing, but it doesn't have an in-engine out. So yeah, you can play mine in this, it's good, but with everybody playing 15 hand traps, I think the triple tactics talent is an I think it's a really good inclusion. But I'm saying you can cut this and play 40 cards. And moving on to the one-offs. One in Star Fusion, the second best card in the deck. Summons Kit Kalos, summons Millennium Mines if you already have access to Kit Kalos. Really, really good card. Really, really good card. The one Galaxy Cyclone, this is the Mystic Mine out. It's also not dead in your hand because you can discard it all of the time with effects like Opening, Lubellion, Droplets. It's the best out for mine in this deck because you may mill the Feather Duster, so better have this. And one Call by Konami, please ban this card. Moving on to the extra deck. One Lubellion. So, one Lubellion because now the Tearlament cards will always put it back. Unless you get hit by Shifter plus Imperm. But, okay, that will not happen all of the time. It will almost never happen. Two Albions. I used to play one Albion and one of the Alba Lenatus card, which can also search spoil, by the way. But we're not doing, but we want to summon Albion in this deck if we want to send Snow, because we're always gonna have fodder. Like as a follow-up tool, you send Albion, you can put back the Albions with the Tearlament cards to summon Dracostapelia. Yeah, it's really good at having two of these, and you can manage having two. Two Mirror Jade, listen to me. At the moment, I think this is a must. This card is the best card in the extra deck, still, because it's follow-up, it's interruption, double interruption basically, even though the second part is a bit situational. And you always want to be able to summon this when you already have the first one gone. Like it also can be banished by its own effect or by someone or by another effect. So yeah, you want to have two of these. Moving on to the Despia cards, two Masquerade. There is no room, there's not a lot of room in this extra deck actually. So we're not playing Ultimate Slayer in this deck because there's no room. Uh, 2 Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. You can do the lock when you opening really easily. Opening plus a Tearlament Monster should get you to 2 interruptions plus Masquerade really often. It depends a bit on the Kit Kalos mills, but it's really easy. And double Masquerade just as your opponent have the out. They may have the out, but they may not have it. And if they don't have it, you just say to them, okay, you can activate only 6 effects. Okay, I guess, and I'm gonna have interruptions. Yeah, try and play. Against Flu, what the hell do they do? Draw Dark Ruler. That's the only thing they can do. Or they can like draw Ultimate Slayer nowadays, but it still costs them some life points. Moving on to the Tearlament portion of the extra deck. 2 Kit Kalos. You can play one. But I don't want to just say play one of every card because you can always shuffle it back with Tearlament cards or with Lubellion. The only card that I'm playing at one that does this is Lubellion because it can shuffle itself. The Kit Kalos is a busted card, obviously. Also, if your first one gets hit, you can instant fusion and get a second one, which is also really good. It happened to me in a few games. You don't just immediately activate instant fusion in this deck. Unless you wanna summon Millennium Eyes. Yeah, 2 of these, really good card. Also, you wanna play 2 in case the first one gets hit by Cold Pie. Very good card. Very good card. Okay, moving on to the level 9 fusion, Kaleido Heart. You wanna summon this as a disruption of Redoer. I'm not playing the Tearlament traps, but because they didn't really come up unless they were milled. But they're not bad cards. If you play them in your build, you can make this a card being better. I'm playing it as a super poly target and as a going second card that basically beats. I'm playing this as a going second card that basically can shuffle anything back into the deck. Really strong effect. Also, you pop this with a field spell and you get 2 disruptions off of it. Really good. Moving on, we play 1 Millennium Eyes Restrict. Millennium Eyes Restrict is here for the instant fusion, as well as when you have King of the Swamp, you shuffle it back and you summon this card. Really good card against hand traps, against effect monsters on the field. Like, this card is actually really good against Fluanderis, for example. Moving on, for the generic part of the fusions, 2 Dracostapelia. This is the most generic fusion monster that's a disruption that can shuffle back your cards and get them back. Yes, it loses to some stuff, but it's a form of interruption, and it's also the super poly target in the deck. When you use super poly, you're mostly gonna summon this, and you may summon Kit Kalos 1 or 2 times. We don't play Starving Venom in this deck, but if Dragon Link becomes a deck, this may change. Then 1 Guardian Chimera, because we play Poly, the card is really good, and the 1 Redoer. When we open only the Tearlament portion of the deck, we wanna make this card. So, yeah, I think it's mandatory, because when you don't have access to the branded fusion cards, you have this, and it's really good. Moving on to the side deck right now, 3 Super Poly, must have in the mirror in my opinion. It's really good. Nobody plays Banishment, branded Banishment. So, I mean, not nobody. There are people who play it, but it's mostly pure Despia decks. 3 Super Poly, really good in the mirror match. It's a bit weird against Sprite, that's why I prefer the more versatile going second cards. Moving on to the other going first side deck busted stuff. 3 deck Devastation Virus. This is for Sprite, and you can play this against Mathmech. It's really, really good against Mathmech. 3, there can be only one. This card just hits almost the whole meta at this point. It hits the Cybers decks, it hits Flu, it hits Sprite. I mean, it doesn't hit the mirror match, but you don't care about that in the mirror match. And for the back row hate options, 2 Lightning Storm, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Reboot, and 1 Feather Duster. Now you're gonna be asking me, why not 3 Cosmic, blah blah blah. Okay, so these cards are for back row decks. I mean, Reboot is coming in if they side deck stuff, but yeah. All of these cards are for back row decks, alongside with the Galaxy Cyclone. That's 7 cards for all of the back row stuff. And these are also good against Flu. Like Lightning Storms, Cosmic Cyclones, Red Reboots, Feather Dusters. These cards, I mean, the 5 first cards are getting in against Flu really, really often. I mean, what am I siding out? I'm keeping always Dark Rulers in. I may side out the 1 Galaxy Cyclone. And, I mean, you can side out stuff. You can even side out the Poly package if you think so, but it gives me access to Millennium Eyes, so I keep it in. You can side out a Tragedy, or a Tearlament Monster, or Snow, or the Going Second cards. The Triple Tactics is a really easily side out sometimes. And yeah, these are all for back row decks. Really, really, at the moment, this may change. But we have the traps that hit stuff going first, and we already play a go second variant, one may say. But it's not really a going second variant. We're just playing strong going second cards, and when you go, that help you win even if you go second. And when you go first, you just put in the auto win cards, and if you draw them, you draw them. Like against Sprite, you put in these 6 cards. If you draw one of them, it's really, really good. Like, they can't have 2 Sprite monsters on the field with there can be only one. And don't get me started on resolving deck devastation against them. Like, this deck gets really easily the monster on the field, even with the multiple amount of hand traps Sprite plays. So yeah, this is the deck. There are things, as I said, that can change. Maybe Mystic Mine will get included if it becomes better in the meta. Maybe Maybe you can cut and play 40 cards. But overall, I think that the branded variant of this deck is by far the best. I mean, not by far. The Punk is also really, really good. But if you play it pure, you're just playing a Dracostabilia Winda Pass. And yeah, that just loses to a lot of things. So, overall, I think this deck is really, really good. There is a lot of room for experimentation with it. But I strongly believe this is one of the best decks of the format. I'm not sure there is yet a best deck, even though people think that Sprite is the best deck at the moment. Overall, that's the deck profile, guys. Have a nice day, everybody.